The World Trade Organization has made history after it selected Nigeria's Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as its next Director General for a 4-year term. So the confirmation of the former Nigerian Finance Minister and global economist makes her the first woman and the first African to lead the World Trade Organization. Let's go straight now to SABC News Correspondent in Brussels, Belgium, Hough. She joins me now. Lucy, a very good evening to you. Thanks indeed for your time. So, what's been the reaction from Europe, to this officially becoming news now?
Well, of course, it's been some time in the works, but a complicated appointment after Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala's appointment was blocked by President Trump back in the autumn of last year in October, despite the fact that she had the support of the majority of the WTO's members. There was a feeling from the then White House that she didn't have enough trade experience, but the new Biden administration has unlocked her appointment and she now takes charge for a long 4.5-year tenure of the WTO. It has been news, welcome news here in Europe. We've had a message from EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen, who's described this as a historic moment, welcoming the first female appointment to this position and promising to support her agenda to reform the WTO. That sentiment shared across Europe. Also the support of President Biden as well, who has described the WTO as slow-moving, but nonetheless has thrown his weight behind the ex-Nigerian Finance Minister.
Lucy, what does her appointment mean? I mean, given that she will take the helm of an organization responsible as an arbiter on global trade, and particularly at a time of rising uncertainty due to the coronavirus pandemic and the devastating impacts thereof.
Yeah, huge uncertainty and arguably the most challenging period in the WTO's 25-year history. Not least the rise of trade nationalism, with countries deciding to really close off their borders and focusing on what's being produced closer to home amid fears about the pandemic, but also, of course, that escalating US-China trade war, which has sort of been fueled by the Trump administration. There are hopes that under President Biden there will be a return to multilateral rules-based international trade, but nonetheless, the new Director General has huge challenges awaiting her, not least the fact that the work of the WTO has been all but suspended because President Trump's administration repeatedly blocked the appointment of new judges to the WTO's appellate body, which is essentially the dispute mechanism body that oversees these international trade disputes. As a result of that work has been all but suspended. So that will certainly be on her agenda, as will be rebuilding global trade during the pandemic, but also in the post-pandemic future.
Lucy, you spoke about reform. I mean, what kind of shape, or what shape will this reform take now at the WTO?
This will be about streamlining and speeding up the dispute resolution process, as I say, kind of unlocking those blocks that we've seen in almost every part of the WTO's brief. She will be looking to ensure the fair distribution. We know that this is extremely important to her, of personal protective equipment and vaccines to developing countries, low and middle income countries as well, ensuring that that trade can run freely as we begin to emerge from the pandemic. Also beginning to sort of try and resolve that, of course, escalating US-China trade war as those countries sort of hunker down and become increasingly nationalistic. And whilst President Biden has indicated, of course, that he wants to return to multilateralism, to rules-based international trade, there are some measures to do with trade under President Trump that he won't be reversing. So a huge amount awaits her. And of course, but as I said, a hugely challenging moment in the WTO's history, and certainly some difficult tasks awaiting her. But certainly a sense here in Europe that this is a new, fresh face with a fresh pair of eyes on an embattled trade organisation.
Just finally, Lucy, I guess she'll have to hit the ground running in areas where, the organisation has previously been criticised of a failure to resolve, for example, disputes between countries?
That's exactly right. And as I say, there has been a hold-up as a result of that decision by President Trump to block the appellate judges voted into the WTO's dispute resolution body. So part of that initial work will be about ensuring that those processes can indeed run at all. We're not just looking at trade disputes under the Trump administration. We're also looking at as far back as the Obama administration. There is a key dispute this year, which was President Trump imposing steel tariffs. Now, there is a ruling due later on this year, and if indeed that there is a ruling against the WTO on this, that could set a precedent globally. So much rests on the next 12 months. There is a major meeting of the WTO members later on this year, which will be a good moment to take stock. But certainly, as I say, welcome news that there is a new fresh face at the top of this organisation, and a sense that could unlock a lot of the blockages and the disruption that's taken place at the top of the WTO in recent years.
Well, live to us from Brussels, SABC News Correspondent Hough. Thanks indeed for your time.